Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to discuss the current visit of the Chinese President Xi Jinping to Saudi Arabia and his summit meetings with the Arab League and as well as the GCC countries. So with me here is Ambassador Asif Durrani, who will also let us know about the importance of the visit as well as its relevance for Pakistan.
Thank you, Amjad. I think President Xi Jinping's visit uh, is very important from the point of view that the China's rise actually is now a reality, and the way this visit has been organized, and as you said, that it won't be just a bilateral visit to Saudi Arabia, but it will also have impact on the overall Arab world, which is why he will also be participating in the Arab Summit and then the GCC countries summit. So, in that respect, you can see that how now Saudi Arabia is positioning itself in the geopolitics of the Middle East. And China is also adjusting itself to the new realities and the way it has gained momentum in the economic field. I think this is going to have a long lasting impact. And I'm sure it will also improve the economies and development of the relevant countries.
Thank you, Ambassador Durrani. Apart from the oil exports by the Gulf countries to China, during the visit of the Chinese president, there were many agreements signed between Saudi Arabia and China, around $29 billion, as reported by the media.
Correct.
And Huawei has also going to sign a big agreement for cloud computing as well as other relevant agreements that could provide technology and other relevant. How the United States is going to weave this visit?
Well, the United States certainly would not be happy. It is already not happy with Saudi Arabia because they were pressurizing Saudi Arabia to cut down on oil production. But the OPEC Plus, in fact, decided to reduce by 2 million per day their oil production in order to keep the prices stable, quote unquote, stable from their point of view. And but its impact on the overall oil market has been adverse because the oil prices have gone up. United States thought that by increasing the production of the oil, they will squeeze and they will in fact pressurize the Russian economy, but it has not happened like that. And Saudis and American side, in fact, also accused Saudi Arabia of siding with the Russians, which they have denied. But at the same time, they also know that why would they lose their profits in oil, while the United States is the largest beneficiary of what has happened after the Ukrainian war. The United States military-industrial complex is now booming, and United States will, after boycotting the Russian gas, United States is likely to replace it, although not immediately, rather another 3 years' time, that United States will supply CNG to the European countries and at a much higher prices than what they were getting from Russia. So it's a game which has been played by both sides. But here, since China and Russia, they align themselves with Asia, so this will create a new paradigm, which I think we should be watching it with great interest because our stakes are also involved when whatever transpires between China and the Gulf states, China and the Arab states, because we are the neighbors. And since China is also our strategic partner, Saudi is our strategic partner, so is UAE, and we have best of the relations with the GCC countries and most of the Arab countries. So it is of great importance for us as well.
You know that this is the first ever visit of the Chinese. The first ever was he is going to host the first ever summit meeting with the GCC countries, that was the Arab League and the Levant countries. But at the same time, there are security concerns of these countries, and so far, the United States of America has been meeting their concerns. How China is going to fill up this gap?
This is a very interesting observation, Amjad, on your part. You have to see that United States, in fact, has been a difficult seller. They have imposed ban on sale of F-35 to UAE because the UAE was building a seaport with the help of the Chinese. They are also, in fact, angry at supply of Chinese missiles technology to Saudi Arabia. They are not happy with China and Saudi Arabia for going for peaceful nuclear technology, which China will cooperate, of course, under the IAEA safeguards. If so, here the things are coming. Those are appearing in a way that since we have all talked about in our previous programs about the onset of a new Cold War, so probably the countries are placing themselves in a way that if they are not siding with the United States or the Russia come China bloc, so at least they can play on both sides of the wicket. And I think that would be beneficial for all the developing countries, especially, that they do not side it. And this is what has appeared during the UN General Assembly resolutions on Ukraine, whereby the important Middle Eastern as well as other middle level countries, they have abstained. They are giving a loud message to all that we have suffered due to these tensions in the past. We don't want to suffer anymore.
Thank you, Ambassador Durrani. One more question about the Iran factor in vis-a-vis the Gulf countries. Iran still remains a source of concern and a threat to the Gulf countries and especially to Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, China also imports a lot of oil from Iran. And now, so they have also entered an agreement with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the largest exporter of oil to China. How China is going to maintain this relationship, balance this relationship?
I think China is in a position because it's a buyer. 51% of China's oil imports are from the Gulf countries plus Iran. But Saudi Arabia takes the largest share. Its exports to China are 27% of its total production. So in a way, all the countries of the GCC plus Iran, they have stakes in China because China is the largest importer. And more importantly, despite sanctions against Iran, China, in fact, continued the supply of its oil. So China is a reliable supplier. China has emerged as a reliable partner, which in the case of United States, you cannot say for sure. And this is what I think should be a source of concern for the United States.
Do you think in future the Gulf countries, especially Saudi Arabia, may also look into the possibilities of importing arms from the China leaving United States?
If you see the kind of technology cooperation is taking place between China and Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's dream project is the new city called NEOM. For NEOM, they are building a state-of-the-art city, and in that, all artificial intelligence projects, most of the artificial intelligence projects are being done by the Chinese. And then China has also emerged as the largest trading partner of the GCC countries with almost 200 plus trade with them. This is not a small amount, and the Gulf states are also wary of the fact that United States, when it talked about the Green Revolution or bringing democracy to the Arab state, Arab world, in fact, it caused chaos. Whether it was Tunisia, that happened on its own, but subsequently in Egypt, you have seen the results, and then it was disaster. United States was involved in Syria, and it became a disaster because Syria has been destroyed. Millions of Syrians have migrated out of the country. So it has been a death and destruction. So here, United States, I'm afraid, will have to revisit its policy because United States will be losing friends if it continues with the present trend of its policy.
Ambassador Durrani, Israel, the state of Israel is also there, and it was a source of threat and concern for the Middle Eastern countries. But at the same time, now there is this famous saying that the way to Washington goes via Tel Aviv. Now they have maintained their relationship and established diplomatic relation with Israel. Do you think that Washington is no more of any relevance for the Gulf countries?
I think United States would remain relevant all the time. Uh, as the saying goes, that United States is the neighbor of all the countries in the world because of its outreach to them. So here, its importance would be there. But Israel's importance, or that the road to Washington goes via Tel Aviv, is also to some extent is correct. Because this has happened. Sudan had been declared a pariah, but once Sudan recognized Israel, now all its quote unquote sins have been washed away. So Israel has an impact, there is no doubt about it. And in the Middle Eastern politics, Israel's role would emerge, and it will gain more momentum because apart from UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan, they have in fact improved their relationship with Saudi Arabia, although Saudi Arabia has not recognized Israel formally. Still, Saudi Arabia has granted overflight permission to the Israeli commercial aircraft going to UAE. So there's a likelihood that they may come together. Here we have to distinguish between Israel, that is part of the region. But overall, in the overall context, you have to see China and United States. China will be supported by Russia. So on the other hand, there is United States and NATO forces. Israel will have to maintain a balance in the region. And since the regional dynamics are such that they, in fact, would continue to, they'll be at each other's throat. So there, I think Israel will act as a bulwark against the Iranian influence. This will continue, but the results could vary when how the situation evolves. Hopefully, they won't go to war with Iran. If that happens, then that would spell a disaster, and that would be a real test for all, whether it's China, Russia, or the United States, whom to support and whom not to support. So this is a complex situation, and it is evolving.
One last question. Do you think Beijing is going to replace Washington vis-a-vis the Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia?
Not in the immediate future, and it also depends that how the international situation evolves. It won't be just the Middle East. In fact, Middle East is part of the world, and you also have to see how the rest of the world, how these alignments take place. For instance, Indo-Pacific alliance, which United States is cobbling together, how that will emerge, what kind of an alliance that would be. Secondly, with AUKUS and the Quad, they are there, how that would contribute to the tensions or peace. That would be very important. And then NATO itself, because the big question is that there is no rationale for NATO to exist, because after the Warsaw Pact was dissolved, there was no need for NATO to expand. Rather, it has expanded from in 1992 as a 12 member states to 32 member states, which shows that their expansionist tendencies are very much there, and they want to dictate the terms, and they want to keep their hegemony.
What is the Indian reaction to the visit of the Chinese president?
I think no, they will see it, because Indians are also very substantive importer of Gulf oil, especially Saudi Arabia and UAE. So it's an interesting now. The game is on, and now it's quite interesting. Let's see how it turns out. But this program was about Mr. Xi Jinping's visit to Saudi Arabia and its after effects. So we just could do that in this shortest possible time.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a very fruitful discussion with Ambassador Asif Durrani about the current visit of the Chinese president to Saudi Arabia and his summit meeting with the Gulf countries as well as the Arab League. Thank you very much.